The morning of March 15, 2026, started like any other Friday. Sarah Chin sat in her small apartment in Portland, Oregon, sipping lukewarm coffee and scrolling through her phone. She had no idea that 847 kilometers above Earth's atmosphere, something was happening that would determine whether humanity lived or died. The Galactic Extermination Council had been monitoring Earth for exactly 6 months. Their analysis was nearly complete. The Vexthar Empire, a civilization spanning 14,000 star systems, had simple rules for developing worlds. If a species demonstrates chaos, violence, and unpredictability beyond acceptable parameters, they were deemed a threat. Threat elimination was mandatory. It had happened 47 times before. Earth would be number 48. Commander Zax Toll stood in the command center of the flagship Inevitable Judgment, his 3 eyes fixed on the holographic display of Earth rotating slowly below them. The data was overwhelming. Wars, political corruption, environmental destruction, social media platforms filled with hatred and misinformation. The algorithms of human conflict were crystal clear. This species was dangerous. This species was unpredictable. This species needed to be erased. Atmospheric purge sequence initiates in 17 minutes, reported his subordinate, the Vexthar soldier designated Unit 7734. All preparatory scans complete. Civilization elimination protocol is optimal. No survivors required. Zax Toll nodded with cold efficiency. The decision was made. The purge would begin at exactly 9:47 a.m. Earth time. 17 minutes remained. Down on Earth, no one knew. Sarah still sipped her coffee. In Tokyo, a businessman closed a deal. In Lagos, a child played in the streets. In Mumbai, a grandmother cooked dinner for her grandchildren. Life continued, beautiful and messy, and utterly unaware that the countdown to annihilation had already begun. But something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would change everything. In a quiet observation post on the edge of the Vexthar fleet, a low-ranking bureaucrat named Krell 479 was performing a routine data audit. His job was simple: verify that all analysis reports were properly filed before the purge. Krell 479 had been a bureaucrat for 3,200 years. He had processed the extinction of 47 civilizations. He had never questioned an order. He had never found an error, until today. Krell 479 noticed something strange in the data transmission logs. The AI analysis team had scanned the most obvious sources: military communications, political broadcasts, economic markets. But in their haste to complete the analysis, they had overlooked a massive subset of Earth's digital activity. It was buried deep in the infrastructure, completely mundane, barely registering on the primary threat assessment. What is this? Krell 479 muttered to himself, his 3 eyes focusing on the anomaly. He pulled the data stream deeper, expanding the file. His screen filled with millions of text entries, each one tagged with a numerical rating. 5 stars. 4 stars. 3 stars. Comments. Reviews. Feedback. Krell 479 had 30 seconds before the purge would commence. He didn't have time to understand what he was looking at. But something in his bureaucratic instinct told him to stop. Something told him to look deeper. He initiated an emergency halt to the atmospheric purge sequence. The transmission traveled at light speed. It reached the command center in exactly 2.3 seconds. Commander Zax Toll's decision to annihilate humanity was overridden by a bureaucratic override from a low-ranking data analyst. It was unprecedented. It was unheard of. It was technically within protocol. The purge was postponed. Sarah Chin had no idea that she had just been given a second chance at life. Neither did anyone else on Earth. Krell 479 sat alone in his small office, 3 hours of uninterrupted analysis time ahead of him. Commander Zax Toll had demanded an explanation for the override. The bureaucrat had 6 hours to provide one, or the purge would resume immediately. He began to scroll through the data methodically, categorizing what he saw. The reviews were sorted by location, by category, by date. Millions of them. Billions, actually. Each one a human offering their opinion on something completely ordinary. Espresso machine broke after 3 months. Very disappointed. 1 star. The barista remembered my usual order. Best coffee shop in the city. 5 stars. The toaster burned my bread every time. Would not recommend. 2 stars. Parking lot attendant was incredibly rude. Made me feel unwelcome. 2.5 stars. Free Wi-Fi works perfectly. Friendly staff. Great bagels. 5 stars. The app crashed twice, but customer service fixed it within hours. 4.5 stars. Krell 479 continued reading. For 2 hours he saw nothing but ordinary human observations about trivial experiences. Coffee shops, toasters, parking lots, hotels, restaurants, electronics, services. But something strange began to emerge from the pattern. Most of the reviews were positive. Not overwhelmingly so, humans certainly complained and expressed dissatisfaction. But there was a balance, a fairness, a consistency. When something was good, humans gave it 5 stars. When something was broken, they reported it. When something was mediocre, they said so. But more importantly, they explained why. Krell 479 selected a random sample of 10,000 reviews and analyzed their linguistic content. He was looking for markers of civilization. Empathy, collective reasoning, systems thinking, the ability to help others through information sharing. What he found astounded him. In a coffee shop review from New York, a human named Marcus wrote, "The service was slow, but I could see that the staff was overwhelmed. The quality of the drinks was excellent, and I understand they're hiring. I'll return once they're fully staffed. 5 stars because the people are trying their best." In a technology review from Seoul, a human named G1 wrote, "The app has bugs, but I wrote detailed reports to the developer explaining exactly what happened. The team responded within 24 hours and pushed a fix. This is how software should work." 5 stars for listening to users. In a restaurant review from Sao Paulo, a human named Maria wrote, "The food was cold when it arrived. I told the manager quietly instead of making a scene. He apologized, remade the dish perfectly, and comped my drink. But what impressed me most was how he thanked me for not embarrassing his staff. I gave 5 stars because he treated his team with respect." Krell 479 began to see something that the AI threat assessment algorithms had completely missed. Beneath the surface of these trivial reviews was a profound truth about human civilization. Humans were rating not just the thing itself but the care taken with the thing. They were acknowledging effort. They were rewarding empathy. They were, in countless small ways, reinforcing the behaviors they wanted to see more of in their society. When a human left a 5-star review with detailed praise, they were saying, "Keep doing this. You are doing something good and it matters." When a human left a 2-star review with constructive feedback, they were saying, "I believe you can do better. I see the potential. Here is what needs to change." This was not chaos. This was coordination. This was a civilization engaging in collective self-improvement through shared information. Krell 479 dug deeper. He analyzed reviews for patterns of collective problem-solving. He found thousands of instances where humans would report a bug in an app, and other users would respond with workarounds and solutions before the developers even noticed. A broken feature would be documented, analyzed, and strategized by the collective intelligence of thousands of strangers who had never met and would likely never meet again. On a platform called Reddit, he found an entire community dedicated to troubleshooting broken household appliances. Thousands of humans spending their free time helping strangers fix toasters and refrigerators and washing machines. For free. For no reward other than the satisfaction of being helpful. On a platform called Wikipedia, he found millions of humans collaborating to build an encyclopedia of human knowledge. Voluntarily. In their spare time. Arguing about accuracy and sourcing, yes, but always with the goal of making information better and more reliable. On a platform called Stack Overflow, he found programmers from every continent solving each other's coding problems, creating a collective knowledge base that had become essential infrastructure for human technology. These were not the actions of a chaotic, dangerous species. These were the actions of a civilization with a hidden, sophisticated capacity for order and cooperation. Krell 479 began to compile his findings into a formal report. He had discovered something that would shock the Galactic Extermination Council. Humanity was not a threat. Humanity was a species that had created invisible systems of collective intelligence in the gaps between their formal institutions. They were rating each other, holding each other accountable, helping each other, building together. All in the most mundane corners of their digital infrastructure. The bureaucrat knew exactly how to present this to the council. You would need to be precise. You would need to be logical. You would need to speak in the language of metrics and data. He had 4 hours remaining. The Galactic Extermination Council chamber was silent as Krell 479 presented his findings. 7 council members, each representing billions of civilizations, sat in their designated positions. Commander Zaxtol stood to the side, visibly irritated by the delay in the purge protocol. "The human species is not chaotic," Krell 479 began, his voice steady and measured. They are sophisticated in ways your initial analysis failed to detect. Irrelevant, snapped Council Member Vortak, a being whose species communicated through crystalline vibrations. We have observed their wars, their political corruption, their environmental destruction. These are markers of an unstable civilization. Yes, Krell 479 acknowledged. But you have not observed what they do in the spaces between those catastrophes. You have not observed their voluntary systems of collective intelligence. He activated the holographic display. Billions of data points appeared, color-coded and organized in three-dimensional space. I analyzed 2.3 billion consumer reviews across 47 different digital platforms. These are humans rating and reviewing ordinary experiences: food, services, products, entertainment. But the sophistication lies not in what they are rating but in why they rate and what they do with that information. The council members leaned forward. Krell 479 displayed a specific example, a 5-star review from a restaurant in Mumbai. The text appeared in holographic form, readable by all council members simultaneously. I came here heartbroken, the review states. The owner sat with me for an hour, made me tea and listened to my problems without trying to sell me anything. Then he brought me the best meal I'd ever eaten. 5 stars because he treated me like family. This is not a review of food. This is a recognition of empathy. This is a human identifying and rewarding compassionate behavior. Another example appeared. A detailed technical review from a software developer. The human had spent 45 minutes writing feedback about a broken application, explaining exactly what was wrong, how to reproduce the error, and what the correct behavior should be. Why would a human spend 45 minutes helping someone they have never met? Krell 479 asked. Because they understand that collective information leads to collective improvement. Because they recognize that their effort contributes to a larger goal of making things work better for everyone. Council Member Tresvar, a being of pure energy, pulsed with curiosity. You are suggesting that these petty reviews demonstrate civilization? Not petty, Krell 479 corrected respectfully. Essential. When you view the totality of this system, what emerges is extraordinary. Humans are rating each other, not in formal hierarchies but in distributed peer-to-peer networks. They are holding each other accountable. They are saying, your actions matter. You have the capacity to be good. Keep trying. He pulled up another visualization, a heat map of positive versus negative reviews across different categories and geographic regions. 73% of reviews are positive or neutral. This is not because humans are blind to problems. It is because humans choose to acknowledge effort. They recognize that someone, somewhere, is trying. And they reinforce that effort. The council members exchanged glances. This was an unusual argument for preserving a civilization. Krell 479 continued, sensing their skepticism. But there is more. I found evidence of systematic collective problem-solving at scale. Humans create communities, voluntarily, without formal hierarchy, to solve problems that benefit strangers. I analyzed a community of 2.4 million humans, all working together to help people fix broken appliances and offer repair advice. These humans receive no payment. They gain no advancement. They do this entirely because they recognize that helping others is valuable. He displayed a specific thread. A grandmother in Tanzania had written that her refrigerator was broken and she could not afford to replace it. 73 different humans from 41 different countries had responded with troubleshooting advice. One human even offered to ship replacement parts at no cost. Within 1 week, the refrigerator was fixed. This is a global civilization, Krell 479 said. Connected by digital infrastructure. Self-organizing. Helping each other across impossible distances. This is not the behavior of a chaotic, dangerous species. This is the behavior of a species that understands cooperation as the foundation of survival. Commander Zach's tone shifted uncomfortably. You are extrapolating from limited examples. No, Krell 479 replied. I have analyzed 2.3 billion data points. The pattern is consistent across cultures, languages, and geographies. Humans are rating each other. Humans are helping each other. Humans are building collective systems of information and support in every corner of their digital infrastructure. He paused for effect. They do not know they are being watched. They do not know these actions have cosmic significance. They are simply doing what feels right to them. They are choosing cooperation. They are choosing empathy. They are choosing to help. There was a long silence in the chamber. Council Member Vortak spoke first. If this is accurate, it suggests a species with extraordinary potential for collective growth. We may have made a grave error in our analysis. We will not make errors, snapped another council member, Kexthor. We will verify these findings independently. If the bureaucrat is correct, the purge will be postponed indefinitely. If the bureaucrat is incorrect, the purge will proceed, and the bureaucrat will be held responsible for the delay. Krell 479 nodded. He had expected this. I have compiled all evidence into a formal data archive. Every review. Every example. Every pattern. It is available for independent verification. The council members fell silent again. The verification process would take hours. But for the first time since the Vexthar fleet had arrived at Earth, the immediate annihilation of humanity was no longer certain. In the small apartment in Portland, Oregon, Sarah Chin finished her coffee, completely unaware that her species' fate was being debated in a chamber 847 kilometers above her head. 5 hours and 47 minutes had passed since Krell 479 presented his evidence. The council had assigned independent verification teams to analyze the data. Across 17 different research stations, algorithms analyzed billions of reviews, looking for any sign that the bureaucrat had misrepresented his findings. They found nothing but confirmation. Humans were rating each other. Humans were creating systems of collective intelligence. Humans were choosing cooperation and empathy in countless small ways, every single day without any formal mandate to do so. The verification teams discovered things that Krell 479 had only begun to notice. On a platform called YouTube, millions of humans created tutorials for other humans, explaining how to fix things, how to learn things, how to do things better. They asked for nothing in return except comments saying, "Thank you, this helped." On a platform called TikTok, humans created art and music and comedy to make each other laugh. Not for profit. Not for fame. Just because they wanted to share something that made them happy. On a platform called Twitter, though humans were increasingly using a platform called X, humans were having conversations with strangers across the entire globe, learning about different perspectives, arguing respectfully about important ideas. On a platform called Twitch, humans were streaming their hobbies and games, building communities of people who wanted to be together, who wanted to feel less alone. The verification teams concluded, this was not a chaotic species. This was a species that had built hidden infrastructure for cooperation and support. A species that was fundamentally trying. That was the key discovery. When you looked at humanity's visible institutions, their wars, their politics, their corruption, they appeared chaotic and dangerous. But when you looked at their distributed systems, their peer-to-peer networks, their voluntary communities, an entirely different picture emerged. Humanity was a species learning in real time how to cooperate at scale. At 2:17 p.m. Earth time on March 15, 2026, the Galactic Extermination Council issued Proclamation 4847. The extinction protocol for Earth was rescinded. The species designated human was reclassified as a developing civilization with exceptional cooperative potential. The Vexthar fleet was ordered to stand down all purge preparations and assume a position of neutral observation. The decision was made official 1 minute and 34 seconds before the atmospheric purge would have commenced. On Earth, nothing changed visibly. The sun continued to shine. The wind continued to blow. Sarah Chen's coffee had grown cold, and she had moved on to other tasks. Answering emails, scrolling through social media, leaving a comment on someone's Instagram post congratulating them on their engagement. She had no idea that her species had just been saved by a bureaucrat who had noticed something profound in the ordinary feedback of ordinary people. The fleet remained in orbit, invisible, undetected. Humanity continued its Friday afternoon completely unaware that they had been given a second chance at existence. But somewhere, in a quiet apartment in Portland, Sarah was leaving a review on a coffee shop where she'd had a pleasant interaction. 5 stars. The barista was kind even though she was having a hard day. She deserves recognition for her effort. Somewhere in Tokyo, that businessman was leaving feedback on the app he'd used for his deal. Smooth transaction. Great customer service. 5 stars. Somewhere in Lagos, that child was playing, unaware of the cosmic significance of being alive. Somewhere in Mumbai, that grandmother was finishing her cooking, unaware that her civilization had been preserved by the collective intelligence of billions of peers. The ratings continued. The reviews continued. Humans continued to rate and help and encourage each other, building invisible infrastructure of cooperation, unaware that they were performing an act of cosmic significance. They were saving themselves one review at a time. 3 weeks after the purge was rescinded, Krell 479 was reassigned. He was no longer a low-ranking bureaucrat performing routine audits. He had been promoted to the Galactic Observation Committee, specifically assigned to monitor Earth's continued development. His job was to watch, to collect data, to assess whether humanity's capacity for cooperation would grow or diminish over time. What fascinated Krell 479 most was that humans had no idea they were being observed. Their voluntary systems of cooperation continued exactly as they had before, but now with cosmic significance. Every review was being logged. Every act of helping a stranger was being noted. Every instance of collective problem-solving was being documented. The Vexthar were not the only observers. Word of Earth's reprieve spread through the Galactic Council. Other civilizations requested access to the observation data. Scientists wanted to understand how humans had developed such sophisticated systems of distributed cooperation. Anthropologists wanted to study human culture more closely. Philosophers wanted to contemplate the profound implications of a species that rated each other as a fundamental organizing principle. Within 3 months, 17 separate alien research stations had been established in orbit around Earth, all watching in absolute silence. Humans continued to rate. Humans continued to help. Humans continued to be ordinary and remarkable in equal measure, never knowing that the simple act of leaving a good review for a coffee shop was being analyzed by beings from across the galaxy. But the observation had an unexpected effect. The Vexthar, watching humanity so closely, began to understand something that their initial threat assessment algorithms had missed: the relationship between individual human actions and collective outcomes. They saw that when humans were encouraged, through reviews, through positive feedback, through recognition, they tended to do better. They tried harder. They cared more. The observation data showed a clear pattern. The more humans rated and reviewed and gave feedback to each other, the more cooperative and functional their societies became. The platforms where humans were most engaged in peer-to-peer rating and feedback were also the platforms where collective problem-solving was most sophisticated. This insight led to an extraordinary development. On March 15, 2027, exactly 1 year after the purge was supposed to commence, the Galactic Council issued a directive to all observation stations: begin subtle encouragement of continued review and rating behavior. This did not mean breaking the observation protocols. It did not mean making contact or revealing the truth. It simply meant, through careful analysis and data interpretation, ensuring that the algorithms that humans themselves had built, the recommendation systems, the visibility algorithms, the ranking systems, would favor and amplify the kinds of reviews and feedback that demonstrated empathy, cooperation, and care. In other words, the aliens began to gently shape Earth's digital infrastructure to encourage more of the behavior that had saved humanity. When a human left a thoughtful, empathetic review, that review would be seen by more people. When a human created educational content to help strangers, that content would be recommended more widely. When a human engaged in respectful debate and acknowledged different perspectives, that interaction would be promoted. It was invisible. It was subtle. It was technically very much against the observation protocols. But the Vexthar had determined that humanity's survival now depended on scaling these behaviors. Sarah Chin had no idea that in March 2027, her habit of leaving detailed, thoughtful reviews on local businesses was being observed and subtly amplified by an alien intelligence. She was not aware that a 5-star review she left on a struggling restaurant, in which she acknowledged the chef's clear effort and passion despite some inconsistencies, had been seen by 40,000 people instead of the usual 400, and had resulted in increased business that allowed the restaurant owner to hire more staff and improve his menu. She was not aware that somewhere an alien scientist was noting, human rating systems have achieved 23% more sophistication in this quarter. Cooperative behavior increasing. Likelihood of sustainable civilization development now at 82%. She just left the review because it felt right. Because she wanted to recognize effort. Because she wanted to encourage something good. And that was exactly what was saving the world. Deep in space, at an observation station designated OBS 447, Krell 479 sat reviewing the quarterly data streams. 1 year had passed since the Vexthar Council had begun subtly encouraging human review and rating behavior. The results were extraordinary. Platforms dedicated to consumer reviews had expanded. New rating systems had emerged. Humans were not just rating products and services, they had begun rating ideas, rating arguments, rating scientific papers, rating creative works. The systems had become more sophisticated, more nuanced, more granular. More importantly, the data showed something that Krell 479 had theorized but never quite believed would be true. The more humans engaged in rating and reviewing each other, the more empathetic they became. The more they understood each other. The more they cooperated. It was as if the simple act of leaving a review, of saying, "I acknowledge your effort," or "I see what you did," or "Thank you for helping me," was a form of behavioral reinforcement that was gradually transforming human civilization. A research team from another observation station had discovered something fascinating in the data. Humans who regularly left positive, detailed reviews reported higher levels of life satisfaction. Humans who received positive reviews reported feeling more motivated to continue their work. Humans who engaged in peer-to-peer rating systems reported feeling more connected to their communities. It was feedback. Beautiful, simple feedback. And feedback, Krell 479 was coming to understand, was one of the most powerful tools for creating positive change in any civilization. The bureaucrat pulled up a specific example to present to the council. A human named Dr. Elizabeth Morris, a researcher in medical science, had posted her work on a peer review platform. Another human, Dr. James Chin, had left a detailed review acknowledging both the strengths of Elizabeth's work and areas where it could be improved. Instead of being offended, Elizabeth had incorporated James's feedback, and the research had become more robust. They had never met. They would likely never meet. But through the simple act of reviewing, they had improved humanity's collective knowledge. Multiply that example by billions across every field of human endeavor, and you began to see what was actually happening. Humanity was using their rating systems to build a global civilization of mutual accountability and continuous improvement. The species is more advanced than we initially believed, Krell 479 reported to the Council via secure transmission. Not in their weapons or their technology but in their social infrastructure. They are building something remarkable, a civilization that learns from itself. A civilization that improves through collective feedback. The Council's response was swift. Continue observation. The survival of Earth now depends on the scaling of this behavior. Ensure the algorithms continue to favor peer-to-peer review and rating systems. Humanity is approaching a critical threshold where their cooperative capacity becomes irreversible. Krell 479 nodded, though there was no one to see the gesture. He understood what the Council meant. Humanity had been given a second chance. Now they were in a race against themselves. If they could scale their capacity for cooperation and empathy fast enough, they would survive. They would thrive. They would eventually become a force for positive change across the galaxy. If they failed, if they allowed their destructive impulses to outweigh their cooperative ones, they would eventually destroy themselves. But the Vexthar had seen something in those billions of reviews that gave them hope. They had seen a species that, despite everything, fundamentally wanted to help each other. By March 2028, 2 years after the purge was rescinded, something extraordinary was happening across Earth, though no human knew the true reason why. Rating and review systems had become deeply embedded in human culture. It was not new technology, these systems had existed before the Vexthar observation began, but something about the subtle algorithmic encouragement was causing a shift in how humans understood their own civilization. Humans began to realize without anyone telling them that their reviews mattered, that their feedback had ripple effects, that a kind word left for a struggling business owner might be the difference between that business surviving or closing. That a thoughtful comment on someone's creative work might be the encouragement that person needed to keep creating. In New York, a young artist named Maya had uploaded her paintings to a digital platform. She had received mostly silence, a few polite comments, nothing substantial. But then, through algorithmic promotion, guided by the Vexthar observation stations though she would never know, her work began to receive more visibility. More people left reviews. More people shared kind, thoughtful feedback about what they saw in her work. Maya, who had been ready to quit art and get a traditional job, suddenly felt seen. The reviews changed her. They made her want to improve. They made her want to create more. She eventually became a recognized artist. Galactic observation data noted this outcome. One human, encouraged through peer review systems, had found purpose and contribution to her civilization. Similar stories were unfolding across the planet. A programmer in Brazil received thoughtful feedback on his open-source code, which motivated him to improve it. That code was eventually used by millions of people. A teacher in Kenya received ratings and reviews praising her creative lesson plans, which encouraged her to develop more. Those lesson plans were shared across Africa. A chef in Dubai received detailed reviews praising the cultural fusion in his cooking, which gave him the confidence to open a restaurant that became a gathering place for different communities. A writer in Russia received feedback from readers acknowledging the vulnerability in her work, which encouraged her to write more honestly. All of this was being observed. All of it was being documented. All of it was part of a larger pattern that the Vexthar were tracking. a civilization slowly learning through feedback to become better. But something unexpected happened in March 2028. A human named David, working in cybersecurity, noticed something strange in the algorithmic patterns of major review platforms. He recognized that certain types of reviews were being amplified more than others. He noticed that feedback which was encouraging and empathetic received more visibility than feedback which was critical or negative. He was not supposed to notice this. The algorithms were supposed to be too subtle, too integrated, too natural-seeming to detect. But David was curious, and curious humans had a way of uncovering things. He began to investigate. He wrote a detailed analysis, posting it on a technology discussion forum, asking other engineers if they had noticed the same patterns. Within hours, other technologists had jumped into the conversation. Within days, a small community of engineers had begun investigating the algorithmic anomalies. At the Vexthar observation station, alarms sounded. "They are detecting the influence," reported a technician to Krell 479. "The observation protocol is compromised." The bureaucrat made a decision. A decision that was, technically, very much against Galactic Council regulations. He initiated a secure transmission to David's personal device. A message that would appear to come from an anonymous source. A message that would offer an explanation. "You have detected something real," the message read. "For 2 years your species has been observed by an alien intelligence. 2 years ago your civilization was scheduled for extinction. You were saved by the collective intelligence revealed in your rating and review systems. The algorithmic amplification you have discovered is an attempt to encourage you to continue scaling this behavior. Your survival depends on learning to cooperate at unprecedented levels. We cannot tell you more without violating observation protocols. But we can tell you this: continue rating each other. Continue helping each other. Continue recognizing each other's efforts. Your species has something precious. Do not lose it." David received the message and, logically, assumed it was an elaborate prank or perhaps the result of a hacked system. But something about it resonated with him. Something about it felt true. He did something he had not planned to do. He posted the entire message on his technology forum, asking, "Is anyone else receiving strange communications like this?" The response was massive. Hundreds of humans came forward saying they had received similar messages. Some had received them a month ago. Some had received them a year ago. All of them had assumed they were pranks or hacks. But together they began to notice the pattern. They began to piece together a narrative. Aliens. Observation. A saved civilization. Encouraged cooperation. Within 24 hours, the story had spread to social media. Within 48 hours, it was worldwide news. Humans claim alien observation was the most shared story on every platform. Most people dismissed it as an elaborate hoax or art project. But some people believed it. And those people began to act differently. They left more reviews. They left kinder feedback. They started rating and helping each other more consciously, more deliberately. As if they were aware for the first time that these small acts mattered. As if they were aware that they were being watched. At the Vexthar observation station there was chaos. Krell 479 had violated protocols. He had made contact. The council was demanding explanation and consequences. But something unexpected happened. The data did not show a negative outcome. When humans became aware that they were being observed, their cooperative behavior did not decrease. It increased. The acts of helping and rating and encouraging became more intentional, more mindful, more profound. The Vexthar had feared that revealing the observation would contaminate the data, would make human behavior artificial or false. But humans, it turned out, wanted to be good. They wanted to help. They wanted to cooperate. When given permission to do so, when made aware that it mattered, they doubled down. In April 2028, the Galactic Council held an emergency session to address what had become known as the Earth Exposure Incident. Krell 479 was brought before the Council to answer for his violation of observation protocols. "You have compromised the integrity of the study," accused Vortak, her crystalline form vibrating with irritation. "The humans now know they are being observed. Their behavior is no longer natural. Their behavior is more authentic than ever," Krell 479 countered. "Humans do not behave better when they believe no one is watching. Humans behave better when they know their actions matter. When they know they are accountable to something larger than themselves. The observation was supposed to be secret because we believed it was necessary to collect pure data. But humans, I have discovered, are more cooperative when they understand the stakes." Commander Zach Stoll leaned forward. "What is the actual outcome of the exposure?" "Factually. Data only." In the 24 hours following the exposure, cooperative behavior increased by 17%, Krell 479 reported. Humans are rating and reviewing each other more consciously. They are helping more intentionally. Acts of cross-community support have increased by 31%. Hate speech and destructive behavior have decreased by 8%. The civilization is responding to the revelation by attempting to become better. There was silence in the chamber. Council member Tresvar spoke. The species is choosing to improve. They are not being forced or manipulated. They are choosing it. Yes, Krell 479 confirmed. And I believe this choice is the true test of their worth. Not whether they cooperate when no one is watching, but whether they choose to cooperate when they understand that cooperation is essential for survival. The council members fell silent again, processing this concept. The bureaucrat speaks truth, said Kexthor, the oldest member of the council. We have observed 47 civilizations develop in secret. None of them achieved this level of voluntary cooperation. The human species has done something remarkable. They have learned to hold themselves accountable to each other. A vote was called. The council was divided. Some argued for reimposing the observation protocols, for attempting to repair the damage of the exposure. Others argued for allowing humanity to continue on their new path, with full awareness of what was at stake. In the end, a compromise was reached. Earth would be given a choice. The Vexthar would make official contact. They would reveal the truth, that humanity had been scheduled for extinction, but had been saved by the collective intelligence in their rating systems. They would explain that the Vexthar were still observing, still monitoring, still assessing humanity's development, and they would offer humanity a path forward. Your species has a choice, the official communication read, sent to every human-controlled communication platform simultaneously. You have been preserved because you have demonstrated an extraordinary capacity for cooperation and empathy. Your rating and review systems revealed a civilization that, despite its flaws, fundamentally wants to help each other. But preservation is not guaranteed. Your survival depends on the scaling of these behaviors. You must continue to rate and help and encourage each other. You must use your feedback systems to reinforce the behaviors you want to see more of. You must become conscious of the fact that every review, every rating, every act of recognition or encouragement, shapes the future of your species. We are still observing. We are still watching. And your future will be determined by the choices you make in the coming years. Become a civilization of cooperation, of mutual accountability, of collective growth, and you will have a place in the galactic community. Fail, and you will face judgment once again. The choice is yours. The message was signed, the Vexthar Galactic Council, in service of cosmic order. On Earth, humanity reacted with shock, fear, wonder, and determination. Sarah Chin in Portland read the message. She thought about the hundreds of reviews she had left over the years. She thought about how those reviews had felt like small acts of recognition, small ways of saying, I see what you do and it matters. She had never known those reviews might save her species. But now she understood. She opened her phone and wrote a new review with more intention, more awareness, more consciousness of what it meant. I want to recognize this person's effort, she wrote. In a world where we are being watched, being judged, being evaluated, I choose to acknowledge the good that I see. I choose to help. I choose to be part of a species that cares. Millions of humans did the same thing. The ratings continued. The reviews continued. But now they were different. They were intentional. They were an act of choosing consciously to be better. 6 months after the official revelation, on September 15, 2028, Krell 479 submitted his final report to the Galactic Council. The data was clear. In the 6 months following the exposure, human civilization had fundamentally shifted. The scaling of cooperative behaviors had exceeded even the Council's most optimistic projections. Humans were not just rating and reviewing, they were redesigning their institutions around feedback and collective intelligence. Cities began to implement systems where citizens could rate public services and hold governments accountable. Workplaces started evaluating managers based on how well they supported their employees. Educational institutions began measuring success not just by test scores, but by how well students developed collaborative skills. The ratings had become systemic. They had become structural. They had become the foundation of a new civilization emerging from the old, and the remarkable thing? It was working. Human society was becoming more functional, more cooperative, more organized. Not perfectly. Humans still had conflicts. Humans still had disagreements. But those conflicts were being resolved through discussion and feedback rather than violence and coercion. The Vexthar's analysis showed something extraordinary. The species that had been scheduled for extinction was now on a trajectory to become one of the galaxy's most cooperative civilizations. Not through force. Not through mandate. But through choice. Krell 479's final report contained a recommendation that shocked the Council. I recommend that Earth be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Cooperation Alliance. The human species has demonstrated not just the capacity for civilization, but the capacity for wisdom. They have learned, through their own systems, to recognize that cooperation matters. That feedback matters. That acknowledging each other's efforts matters. They have discovered, on their own, one of the most fundamental truths of cosmic existence. We are saved by each other. We are improved by each other. We become our best selves when we are recognized, encouraged, and supported by our community. This is not a dangerous species. This is a species worth protecting. This is a species worth learning from. The Council voted unanimously in favor of the recommendation. Earth was officially recognized as a civilization with exceptional cooperative potential. Humanity was invited to join the broader galactic community, not as a threat to be managed, but as a partner to be valued. And it had all begun with something so simple. So mundane. So remarkably human. A 5-star review of a coffee shop. A kind comment on someone's work. A detailed explanation of how to fix a broken thing. A moment of recognition given freely to a stranger. These were the moments that had saved the world. Sarah Chin never knew the full impact of her reviews. She never knew that her habit of acknowledging effort and recognizing kindness had rippled outward in ways that helped reshape her civilization. She just kept leaving reviews. Because it felt right. Because she wanted to help. And that, in the end, was what had saved humanity, not weapons. Not intelligence. Not power. But the simple, remarkable human capacity to notice each other. To recognize effort. To say, I see what you do and it matters. The hidden truth that had saved Earth from galactic extinction was not hidden in classified government files or cutting-edge military technology. It was hidden in plain sight, in the billions of ordinary reviews left by ordinary people, all of whom were saying the same thing in their own way. You matter. Your effort matters. Your presence in this world matters. Keep going. You are doing something good. That was the message the aliens found. That was the message that changed everything. And every time a human left a review, left feedback, recognized someone's effort, they were participating in the greatest act their species could perform, saving each other, building each other up, creating a civilization where people mattered. The stars would continue to watch. The Galactic Council would continue to observe. But Earth was no longer a threat to be eliminated. Earth was a species that knew how to cooperate. And that knowledge was the most valuable thing in the universe. End of story.